Good evening and welcome everybody to episode 4 of CryptoNow. And today we're going to be talking about the wonderful world of the Metaverse. And I'm sitting here as always with the boys from Crypto Ventures, Joe Mataj, Ashley Hutchison. How we doing, guys?
Great. How many of these you think we'll do? You think we'll be here in like 10 years and then we'll be like wasting away? Or
Man, I hope that's the deal because that means I've been in business for 40 years or whatever. I think we're going to find out when we talk about what technology is going to allow us to do. Will we be doing this in a virtual reality space someday is the question, right?
That's it. Yeah.
I don't know. Joe, how you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
This is going to be an interesting episode, one that I'm actually looking forward to because you broke the news to me last episode in our third installment of the show. You broke the news to me, and I was just blown away of what was coming. And then it wasn't shortly after that, or maybe it was just before, where Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook had just changed their name, and they are kind of remodeling and doing a lot of politically correct things now. At least they're trying to do some, what do they call that, PR saves, which is desperately needed on their front. I read something that says if you don't like the conversation that's being had about you, change it. And that's exactly what they've done. Ashley, where do you want to get started today when we talk about Metaverse? Do you want to describe what it is again for maybe those that didn't catch the last episode, kind of set a foundation for where we're going to go, or do you want to dive in somewhere else?
Well, sure. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the former. So I guess maybe just to clarify, certainly this is something, Metaverse isn't new, but is new in the public consciousness. Right. And so we're not seeking to, describe it in every vivid detail, but just kind of just talk about it in general and kind of induce it as a concept. And
how does it change what it is, what it's going to be versus what we know it as now to the mainstream public?
Well, I guess a good way to say it would be that the metaverse is a convergence of our real and digital lives, like, everything from the real economy, the real interactions, real communication, real work, real play, with the digital counterparts to all of that. It's a convergence of those worlds. And, we've kind of been making steps in this direction. There's been online communities for a couple decades, right? But now technology has been advancing at such a rate that we have major players like Facebook and Microsoft that are now saying, this is it. This is the next this is Web 3.0. This is the next version of the internet and our digital lives.
It's scary for those of us that can see some of the things that are coming, but it's also a wonderful world of opportunity, and that's where you guys in Crypto Ventures comes in. What excites you the most about the potential of the Metaverse, Joe? What are some of the things that just, even though we're 5-10 years away from maybe it working at its, I guess, peak ways, what excites you the most about what's on the horizon?
Well, I think the thing that drew me to it first is just the fact that, again, we are in the crypto space. So we're involved in that cryptocurrency world, seeing these new currencies evolve and come to fruition. But the Metaverse provides an ideal use case for that, something where a digital money really is needed in a virtual world.
Right.
And so the excitement that drew me initially was just the fact that, wow, those are the perfect two things to fit together.
It's like this perfect marriage and that's kind of what happened with the cell phone and social media and how that changed, and the internet and everything. And now we've got this perfect marriage again of technology and the internet and what can come from it. I don't know.
Well, and another thing is that actually, I think that the pandemic accelerated a trend that was already developing around virtual work and remote work that kind of sets the stage for this type of development to happen. And you're already seeing it. These companies like Microsoft are beginning to develop how we're going to do virtual work in the future. I think even Microsoft announced that in 2022, they're going to be introducing virtual realities in their Teams app, which is their Zoom, basically, the competitor to Zoom, which I use all the time. There's going to be avatars, there's going to be digital workspaces and collaboration. And so you see that on the work side, And we're also seeing in the crypto space that happen on the gaming side, on the play side.
Yeah.
Where there are metaverses on the blockchain and in virtual realities where individuals actually own property, assets, and participate in an economy. And so that's just one example. And, there are many people that believe that this is going to be a huge part of our life, in 3, 5, 10 years.
I'm one of those people. I know it's kind of funny. We had that email exchange there a couple weeks back, and you're like, Joe was, kind of advising me to just pump the brakes a little bit. But it's hard not to see this, and me being an elder millennial, I know what it's capable of. Especially in the gaming side, I know what can come from it. You guys know what can come from it from the other side of it, and that's the part where it feels inevitable, right? It feels like it's almost too big to fail. Now it's going to happen. It might not look what we thought it would be when it first takes off. We're gonna be like, this is it. But as every piece of technology does, it gets a little more sophisticated over time, and then there's just so many more things you can do. It's like I was looking at just some of the commercials and reading some of the articles about how you can sell NFTs in that world, and how it really does help NFTs and that whole thing that we talked about in the prior episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, and Joe's point, cryptocurrency and NFTs really enables the metaverse to actually happen and to actually, develop more quickly and in a more sophisticated way, because now you have a way to securely, do activities, everything from buying and selling things to working on things to playing to interacting. It really does enable that economy of the metaverse.
And to take that to the nth degree, it's actually, again, it's a metaverse. In other words, it's a like a whole world system. And what it's going to enable is the ability for literally new jobs and careers to develop. I mean, there'll be the ability for you to function as a employee or
in this
entrepreneur in this virtual world, doing things that we don't even really comprehend yet. And to some degree, and this is a little out there, but as automation starts to replace the physical person in labor, as far as what we do today, this has the potential to offer that opportunity for people to continue to have a role,
Purpose.
have purpose, viability by existing in a digital world where a greater share of world's population are going to be residing in.
I don't think it's a reach at all, Joe. I actually was going to ask you guys this about the opportunities and what do you actually think some of the career fields can be coming off of this, because as automation does take over, especially, the transportation industry, things of that nature, that's going to happen here in the next 5 to 10 years. And Andrew Yang has already kind of been whistleblowing on that. Like we're losing jobs faster than we can create them. And it's happening and it's causing depression and alcoholism and, domestic violence and divorce and all these things are skyrocketing. And then you add a pandemic on top of it, and that didn't help anybody. It is fascinating to see if maybe this does offer an opportunity. Even though we can't see what those opportunities are, we just know that there will be something there. I was curious though, is it still going to be something that can, the purpose part of it, I guess, is what I'm getting at. The purpose part of me virtually not moving, or maybe I am moving, so to speak, a little bit, but my point, in my house, is that going to give me enough purpose to feel good about myself as a human?
Just look at all the examples that are already coming into play. Really anything that you need to collaborate on that's intellectual, that's artistic. Today, even things that are physical. I mean, let's go with music, like getting into a virtual space and being able to produce music with, the sounds are there. The keystrokes are there. The notes are there. The collaboration and communication is there. So, anything artistic, developing, computer programming, anything that's technical. Today, what do? You get on a Teams meeting, you chat, you figure out how to, solve problems. So these things can be done virtually. I just read the other day that the military is exploring ways to train personnel in a virtual space. Today, we already know people are operating drones, from the privacy of, sitting in the U.S. or base and operating drones. Well, soon you'll be able to do that, from a virtual space. So a lot of things, even physically, will be able to be accomplished in a virtual space because it's connected. It's connected to the Internet of Things.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what the future of war looks like.
Right.
Nobody can even envision 100 years from World War I to where we are now with war, what technology has done for it. Will we even have soldiers on, boots on ground, or what do they call that?
Yeah.
Will we even have that? Or will it just be literally Terminator, or, you know what I mean? Cyborg robots fighting each other. I mean, what does it look like?
Or is it even beyond that? Is it,
in the cyberspace.
Right. Is it in the cyberspace?
Yeah.
Right. Again, we were talking about the fact in the metaverse, you can have virtual property, virtual real estate that will have real value. I've looked at some of these games, Axie Infinity, one of the top ones out there right now. Their land isn't even functional yet, but cheapest you can get a piece of land, there's probably about $10,000.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's not even functional yet.
And it's not even functional yet. But as that property develops and there's a purpose for it, people are visiting it. It would create value, and ultimately the electronics may, who knows? They may be able to create a system where, hey, look, this is the new warfare, right? It's about how whoever does the right things to control this property, they're the winners.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest with you. Some of this is going over my head in the sense of controlling property. This is the whole part that I don't fully grasp, because to me the universe or the internet feels infinite, right? Mm-hmm. Infinite property, infinite. When I think about it in the virtual reality concept, with 3D buildings and things of that. When I think of on a scale of trying to see what that type of thing. That stuff just goes over my head, Joe. You know what I mean?
Well, one way to think about it is that it's really not one metaverse. It's a interconnected group of metaverses. There will be many metaverses, whether it be metaverses, gaming metaverses, work metaverses, social metaverses. But there'll be a level of connectivity to that in Web3.
And you think they'll all communicate with each other in some aspect, or is it going to be?
There'll be a lot of interoperability, I think. Just like today in Web2, we have a lot of interoperability between apps and
sure, yeah,
and different
I think that's
regions. Yeah.
That's when you talk about a Facebook or a Microsoft stepping into this space. That's what I see them bringing to the table, is the fact that we now have to create that interoperability.
Yeah, and that's going to be the challenge.
Well, and for a less, maybe a more mundane example or simple example, think about it today. My family is across the country, and we were just texting today saying, hey, let's do a FaceTime on Thanksgiving, right? Because not everyone can be in the same place at the same time. Well, what if there was a very advanced, sophisticated virtual world that you could step into and have Thanksgiving dinner with your family?
but the actuality of what's happening is you're sitting in your home.
What if that gravy really tasted real? What if those mashed potatoes really taste like mashed potatoes?
There is something to that. Disney has always had kind of those rides where your senses, they're spraying stuff on you to kind of play with it. And it is interesting, but the actuality of what's happening. Okay, and we're already halfway through the show, and I want to get to some of these other things, is that with your guys' job, it's all about presenting these new opportunities and investment opportunities and explaining these things to these businesses and companies, but it's also making sure that the privacy side of things and the security side of things. I was reading similar articles, I think it was the ones that you sent me, about Facebook, who we already don't trust with our data, we don't trust with our privacy, but we still give it to them. We don't trust them with it. Now we're going to let them invade our homes even more because something as interesting as these sensors. You know, if you want to build a kind of a 3D model of your home as it exists or something else, you got to put sensors in the house. And now you're inviting them in your house even more. You know what I mean? The big brother, so to speak. How can we continue to complain about these things, but yet participate in these things?
Well, and I like that pivot you just made, because I think that you can't have this conversation without talking about the challenges and the downside of this as well. Because in many ways, I think the metaverse could exacerbate some issues that we have already, like you just mentioned, privacy issues, you know, even children security and safety. You know, so yeah, I think that's worth talking about as well. Like, what are going to be the challenges for me? Number one, yes, data security. As our life becomes more and more digitized.
Yeah.
Then, you know, the security of that data is going to become more and more important, right? There's going to be security issues. You know, just like you physically secure your house with an alarm system.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have to figure out how, you know, how do you secure your online life, this virtual world that you have. And there's some more challenges as well. Like, for instance, I was reading an interesting article about, it might have been one of the ones that we were passing back and forth about how, you know, it's not just like you step into a virtual world. Like, in many cases, you'll have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, you know, you're wearing your VR glasses and walking down the street. And the example was, you know, advertising and marketing will develop to the place that you and I might see different things.
That's what we already do, right?
But this will take it to another level where all the data that's being collected and the AI that's being developed from all this data collection from Facebook and others that's going to be used in these virtual realities could potentially make us more polarized, can tailor our life experiences just to what we believe, create echo chambers where I only see what I really want to see, and you only see what you really want to see, because these marketers and advertisers are going to be pinpointing that.
Well, that's already happening right now. I mean, in a 2D format. I mean, Google, it's been proven that Google is showing you what you already believe in, what you already want to know. So your Google search engine is just another thing to, you know, to affirm those beliefs. So what I'm typing in, I might ask, you know, what happened at the January 6th Capitol riots, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of one thing, and then you type in the same question, you might get something completely different.
It's terrible. I look at my Google News and I see Pete Davidson, Kanye, and China. You know?
In China.
They're consistent things. I had to bring up China. I know you thought I wasn't going to, but I have to
sneak
do it.
in. Joe, what do you think when it comes to the security aspect of it? Is it something that, are we gaining more going down this road? Is it just inevitable? So we are going down this road? Like, where are we at with the security part of it?
Well, I think I'll call it the privacy thing.
Privacy,
I think
okay.
that's security is certainly a concern, but for me, the biggest one is the privacy thing, and it's tough to see a way out.
Yeah,
it is going to continue to be a compromise for us. I think the thing that I hope develops as we continue to move down this technological road is the individual's realization that this is something that has to be managed. Your personal ID and data is something that has to be managed. You have to make those decisions as far as what is going to be exposed and what is not. And you know, a glimmer of hope, I'm seeing projects with that intent, that they want to help you create your digital ID, create a standardized digital ID that allows you to control those parameters, whether you know, if you get on Facebook, what things they're going to be able to see versus what they might see if you just walk on there with no protection.
So going off of that, then, one thing that comes to my mind when you say that, Joe, is right now we have no regulation on these big tech community or companies, and there needs to be if we get down this this road. There needs to be now as it is, but like some of the things that happen, especially in Facebook terms, right, is they have muddied the settings so much in an actual, like a practical way of doing things that you don't even know how to manage your Facebook page anymore because there's so many different things that you got to turn off or turn this on, or I got to, you turn it off here and you think you've done it all, but now it's in 3 other places and nobody's got time to figure that out. It doesn't come with a manual. And if it did, you're not going to try to read it. You know what I mean? It's just too muddy. I'd like to see the regulation of process really simplify how to manage your social media so that they can't kind of backhole you into something.
I think that's a great point. Regulation could also be a double-edged sword for traditional companies, but I think that's actually an argument. We don't have time to get into it tonight, but that's an argument for the decentralized blockchain-based metaverses that may, come into play as well. Certainly Facebook, Microsoft's involvement is a huge key and indicator, that this is a real thing of the future. But I'd be more interested to see what are the decentralized platforms that are going to be developed around the metaverse, which is what we actually research and talk about a lot. And by the way, if you in the early 2000s were a person who somehow foresaw, the developments of Facebook and Twitter and all these Web 2.0 social media platforms and that new technology, that wave of technology, and you invested in that, you made it your business to understand what the most viable projects were at that time, then you would be a very happy person from a financial standpoint today, right?
Yeah,
well, that's really
enough.
where we are right now. And to be frank, that's part of what Crypto Ventures is setting out to do. Is we see these technologies developing, and we're still in the early stages. It may be 3, 5, 10 years before the metaverse is truly matured, and yet, if you're willing to research what the most viable projects are and sort through some of these issues that are going to come up and who's going to handle them the best, and you're able to diversify around that, then I would say in 3, 5, 10 years, we'll probably be very happy.
Well, the good news is that's what you guys are for. That
was kind of a shameless plug in a way. Kind of.
That's the good news is that I can come to you and ask you all these questions and that you'll be able to give me all of the correct answers. No, it's going to be very difficult, and it's got to be people like you who are willing to take on that challenge so that these companies that are going to ask you guys a million questions to try to have a million answers, and if not, try to find the route to get to it, because it's coming, and like you said, it's very hard to see that it's going to be anything else.
Well, I hope that our governing bodies catch up to this as soon as possible. This is the biggest issue, I think, is that this technology is moving so quickly. Even Facebook, that evolved much faster than what the legislative bodies really had time to comprehend the potential and what it's doing, and what's happening in the blockchain space and now the metaverse space is going to be another repeat of that, with I think even more significant consequences if that is not understood well.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm an early technology adopter. I was just saying before we started the show that I'd like to get some Oculus VR and try out the Immersion app, and I definitely am all for it, but there's a little check in me too that says, what kind of world do we really want to live in? I don't know if you read that article about the parent who the children wanted to have their birthday party on Roblox. Listen, I'm glad my kids didn't even think of that, because they would have wanted to do that. That's all they want. They want Roblox points for
better
birthdays.
Hope they're not
Christmas.
watching the show.
Yeah, they better not watch. They probably are if they're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Filter that. You know? But no, I think it's a legitimate question as we move forward. How are we going to shape that? Social media. There's been a lot of great things that came out of it. More efficient human connection and communication. But I don't mind telling you that I'm not on Facebook. Mm-hmm. The only social media I'm on is LinkedIn for business purposes. I'm not frowning on anybody that does, but I just got tired of Facebook because of the fact that people can can at a distance interact at a distance, and there's very little accountability in that platform. And I think, in a metaverse, you got to ask yourself that question: what kind of human connection are we going to have? What kind of economy? These are real deep questions about work, play, culture, values that we have not even begun to think about. I think before we even know it, like Joe said about Facebook, we're going to be right in the middle of this, and then we're not even going to understand the effect of that.
Well, I actually...
And I'm a person that is investing, wants to invest in it and wants to make the most of it.
And I got to be honest with you, I am so torn. Every day I say, today's the day I'm deleting my Facebook, today's the day. And the reason I keep it is for, noble reasons, promote my show or to Facebook Marketplace.
Business,
things that I would like it for. And then I say to myself, okay, well then just use it for the things you want it for. And it doesn't become obsessive. But you still, you still see the toxic, ugly side of it. And I got to tell you, when it comes to governing bodies regulating this thing, seeing what's happened with society over the last 10 years and how we have just kind of deteriorated when it comes to morals and, the fabric of human beings. And maybe I'm not trying to be kind of a doomsday guy here because I'm not. I'm an optimistic human being, but I don't know that we're going to catch up and do a better job, because what's happening is I feel like we continue to, I think it is happening more and more. I think we are aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
That is in the zeitgeist, so to speak. But I also think that we are still willing to just travel a little bit further.
Well, and I
don't see it going backwards.
I think that you always want to try to be very optimistic, right, about the future. Like I'm optimistic about us as human beings and about the future and about technology. I think things can be made better, right? But I think it also helps as we move forward to be conscientious about what we're investing in, what we're promoting, and what we're signing on for. If you give me a choice between a centralized company who's controlling the data and just doing a new spin on it, calling it the Metaverse, and a more decentralized platform where they're really honing in on privacy, options, connection, and figuring out how do you best deploy the Metaverse to our problems rather than just harvesting people's data in a new way for money. That's all I'm saying. I'm an optimist by heart, but we can't think that the Metaverse is going to solve all of our problems.
In truth be told, it might be the one area that there might be some talking points where both sides of the aisle want to come and solve this, because I think they do. You know what I mean? Where on every other thing, it's so polarized that they don't want to, it feels like maybe.
Well, it helps if you don't have a congressional hearing and people are saying, now, what is Facebook?
No, that's another conversation for another day, I suppose, because that's another question I was going to ask you, Joe, is just about the generation gap of those that are, still working and they see something like this happen in the next 5-10 years. Where do they even go to get this type of training? How do they find it inwards to even want to continue on for another 10 years? Because most of them aren't going to see Social Security until they're 67. So this is a big problem. This is going to cause some for the older generation. The younger generation is just going to grow right with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. It's going to be a tough cookie to solve there.
Guys, we're at 31 minutes. We're just flying. I as always, guys, appreciate you being on the show. CryptoNow episode 4, Metaverse. We just barely scratched the surface on that one.
Seems like all these topics should have like 3 or 4 parts,
They should, yeah. We should just do them in layers, hit the camera, turn it back on, and go to the next one. Any last words?
No, just again appreciate all your hard work, and it's always a great conversation, and we're learning every day. Like this is such a quickly evolving space that truly it's exciting, and just encourage everyone to reach out to us. We love to converse about this and research and looking for feedback and even topics.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Comment in the comment section on YouTube. Go there and leave these guys what you're thinking, how they can help you. Questions. We'd love to have a segment where we just take questions from you guys. So, if that's okay with you,
absolutely.
I'm putting you guys on the spot.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I think we should do. As always, I'm Robert Gifford, Joe Mataj, and Ashley Hutchinson, Crypto Ventures boys. This is Crypto Now, episode 4. We'll see you next month.